Hello everyone, this is Leo from the PC Security channel, and this is the private evaluation of Malwarebytes endpoint protection. In this video, we're going to cover usability and user experience. To start things off, we're going to take a look at Malwarebytes Nebula, which is their cloud management console. Now, this product comes with a very minimal user interface on the actual deployment system. As you can see, we have the endpoint protection agent installed, but the only action available here is starting a scan. Everything else is actually available in the Nebula UI. This is our home screen, so we've got endpoints by status, detections cleaned, detections by category. Now the good thing is this view is entirely configurable, so you can move stuff around. You can even totally customize the widgets on here, so you can go over here and click on configure widgets. By default, everything is shown, and I would say the view is quite comprehensive. Now if you click on any of the categories here, like for example, if we take a look at files in the quarantine status, it then takes you to a different part of the UI where things are actually actionable. Overall, the UI has a two-layer interface. So there's one layer, which is the one you're looking at right now. And then when you click on an individual item like so, another layer pops up. In terms of threats and alerts, this is very similar to a lot of home products. So any system administrators should be more than familiar with the UI, and it does maintain a good level of simplicity for the end user. In every single view, we've got groups and filters. So over here, we've got a filter set for quarantined and last 7 days. This is infinitely customizable, so you can get whatever view you want. If you'd like to clear the filters and try something else, you can always say blocked, for example, in action taken, and then category, malware, or PUP, or website, and it's going to refresh the view accordingly. The filters do compound, so essentially it's doing a logical AND operation, and this conceptual layout applies to every single part of the UI. So if we go into endpoints, it's exactly the same. You can again filter by any specific criteria that you like based on the different headings here. Adding an endpoint is fairly easy, so if you click on this button, it takes you to the download section. This is available for all different operating systems, so it's fairly easy to deploy. Once the agent is installed, we're going to look at configurability. And that brings us to another part of the experience, which is settings and policies. So the way the UI works is you have different policies. Policies are applied to groups, and endpoints are assigned to groups. This means there is no direct way to apply settings to a specific endpoint. I think that is one of the few multi-step processes in this UI. The product is also extremely configurable. So if we go into policies, as we will see, the settings are quite extensive, and it's also modular. I'm personally a big fan of this, since these days we get a lot of products where you only get to have all the protection layers turned on or none. In this case, every single module can be independently turned on or off. Even the general settings are quite extensive in terms of what to report, when to start up, so it does give you a lot of configurability. Under settings, we've got all the technical stuff, so we've got web protection, exploit protection, and you can even change the protected applications here. Under miscellaneous, again, there are more specific settings for self-protection. You can also entirely configure how it registers in the Windows Action Center. So if you want to not register it, so you can run Windows Defender in parallel, that is an option. Under advanced detection, there's a lot of additional protection options that can be turned on, and the same goes for suspicious activity monitoring, which is turned off by default. So something else to consider is the default settings may not be the best for you, and I would say the default settings are less aggressive than most products. So if you'd like to have more alerting, you definitely want to go in here and change your policy. But the good thing is the product is very configurable, so you're not limited in any sense. We've also got ransomware rollback with a lot of flexibility, and time frames up to 72 hours, which is way beyond standard. Exclusions are also highly detailed, so you can exclude from a specific module. This is extremely handy if an application is being blocked by some of the zero-day defenses or being flagged as suspicious activity. You still want to monitor it for malware. You can totally do that while adding exclusions. Adding users is also fairly straightforward, but we have only 3 different types of roles, and there's no real further configuration that you can have within these categories. But you can allow a certain category to only access a certain type of group. In terms of access to data, we have those in different categories like tasks, events, reports. In terms of detecting threats and dealing with them, I think that is one of the most straightforward parts of this UI, and anyone who's used an AV is going to be quite familiar with this. So anytime something is detected, it typically goes into quarantine. You've got the same system of filters here, and you can select and restore or delete any item from here quite easily. Flight Recorder allows you to do more advanced searches for specific domains, IP addresses, hashes, and so on. And suspicious activity, when turned on, is going to showcase a lot more activities that can be investigated. But overall, the UI maintains a certain level of simplicity while still giving you a lot of configurability in terms of the level of protection as well as modularity. Main improvements or shortcomings that I can notice with Nebula is the lack of a universal search feature. Now, you can search for events in Flight Recorder, but at the moment you can totally use filters to narrow down the events that you want to look at. Now, in terms of false positives, Malwarebytes actually exceeded expectations for us, performing very well with our set of data, which included 50 relatively common files, but that are often flagged by AVs falsely, and 5 files that are flagged by a lot of AVs on VirSTotal, even though they're not really malicious. Malwarebytes did not flag any of these files. So at least in the default configuration, it is not heavy-handed in that area. So that's our overview for Malwarebytes endpoint protection from a usability perspective. It is definitely something that's going to be attractive to small to medium businesses that don't have a very large IT team. It is extremely configurable while maintaining a certain level of simplicity that allows it to be used by anyone. In terms of features, there's still quite a few additions that could be made, but it is constantly evolving and new features are being added. The modularity is also a big bonus for people who want that kind of granular control over their protection features, and the low number of false positives is definitely a bonus. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. This is an independent evaluation carried out on demand by the PC Security channel. Feel free to check us out at thepcsecuritychannel.com or tpsc.tech.